following program is available in high definition on Channel 700. This program is designed and produced by the community with the support of TV Cogeco.
All the candidates did provide bios. I'm going to read them. Some were longer than others. We only edited out any superfluous or adjectives that were not necessary, and I'm going to read them off right now. Michael Skinner is a Conservative candidate for Peterborough-Kawartha. He was born and raised in Peterborough and started Operatel, an e-learning company with offices in Peterborough, Brazil, China, and Australia, and currently owns Kawartha Entertainment Group. He's volunteered on boards such as Peterborough Economic Development, the Innovation Cluster, Shining Waters Rail, and Startup Peterborough. Doug Mason. And who is Doug Mason? In answering that question during the campaign, Doug shied away from suggesting that who he is of urgent relevance. It's the Green Party that he wants people to become familiar with. He's a 59-year-old who has worked at Quaker Oats after high school, then in avionics and telecom. And when he was bored with that, he learned about small business by failing miserably with a skateboard park and fast food joint. He was rescued by the opportunity to become a high school electronics teacher, and again rescued himself a few years later, leaving full-time teaching, becoming a permanent supply teacher, the most productive job he has ever had. He enjoys, unfortunately, secluded country, living in life north of Havelock for many years, and he shares his life with honeybees and the bears and his forest, and he shares the marsh with snowmobilers, ATVs, and hunters. Doug says he is your Plan B candidate for the Green Party of Canada. Miriam Monsef. For the past decade, Miriam Monsef has been a dedicated community organizer, volunteer, and advocate. Since graduating from Trent University with a Bachelor of Science, she has worked for a number of organizations, including Trent University, Fleming College, Peterborough Economic Development, the Community Foundation of Greater Peterborough, and the New Canadian Centre. She has also been an active volunteer, serving on over 30 community-based action committees and on numerous boards. She's a speaker on topics such as leadership, youth, women, and community action. Dave Nickel recently retired from teaching after 30 years, the last 21 of those working at Peterborough's Thomas A. Stewart Secondary School. Throughout his career, Dave engaged with families from all walks of life. He's chair of the board of directors of the Peterborough Community Legal Centre, where low-income residents can access free advice and representation, also an active member of the Peterborough Health Coalition, working to strengthen public health care. He served as president of District 14 of the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation, and as executive member of the Peterborough and District Labour Council. Dave and his wife Nancy have called Peterborough home for over 25 years. Together they are proud parents to two grown children, Ryan and Kayla. And these are our honored guests today.
Thank you very much, Jay. Okay, we'll now start with the candidates' opening remarks. And again, if they could come to the podium for the opening remarks. Each candidate has 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes. Whoever wrote that was very optimistic. We have our Sergeant-at-Arms, Ken Tremblay, over there, who has reappeared. When I mentioned you earlier, you had disappeared in a puff of smoke. So that's, yes. Anyway, he has reappeared. Ken will give you a 1-minute heads-up warning with another high-tech device. So that you'll know. And then when your 5 minutes is up, Ken will ring our famous Rotary bell, at which point you disappear in a puff of smoke. So it was either that or doing it like the Academy Awards, and you'll see your mic get lower and lower and lower, but our orchestra didn't come today. So anyway, so the order of the speaking was again done by random draw. Doug will be going first, representing the Green Party, followed by Dave, speaking for the NDP, followed by Miriam, speaking for the Liberals, and followed by Mike, speaking for, who's left? The Conservative Party. So, Doug, could you lead up, please?
Thank you, Bruce. Well, thank you. It is such a pleasure to be greeted by song, and have we had dance yet? But that reception that you guys gave us is wonderful. I going through my mind was a contrast with our all candidates meeting in Buckhorn. Again, a very welcoming, pleasant crowd, but they were informed in no uncertain terms that they were not allowed to clap. And so we thought that was a bit too authoritarian, I guess. So at any rate, I'm very glad to be here in such a welcoming crowd. I would, just before I get into my babbling spiel, I would like to recognize your efforts with polio in working outside of Canada. It's extremely good work, extremely important work. Working outside of Canada to solve that problem does make us more secure here in Canada as well. So, so I thank you for all that good work. Habitat for Humanity, a very needed effort as well. And while I'm complimenting everybody, I would like to recognize that I saw a sign for this hotel on the way in. The Green Key. They've received the Green Key Award, and they described it in the little plaque there for very mature programs that they have in place. And that gave me some a good feeling as well, because sometimes we hear about this greenwashing, but this is apparently an award that has some history behind it, and so that's good. Now, so my name is Doug Mason. I'm your Green Party candidate, and I would just like to perhaps comment a little bit on that introduction that Jay read, edited somewhat. I put that together yesterday evening, and I was just kind of going through my mind as to how I got here. It wasn't so much what I wanted to say to you, it was what I was going through my mind as to how I got here. So the point I wanted to make was that I took a very long, winding road to get to, as Jay told you, to get to the most productive job I have ever had. As a supply teacher, who would have figured that I would think that that is where I am productive? But it's true. In that limited way, in the limited context that supply teaching allows, I have found my little niche. And I am far more productive there. So the point I wanted to make was I doubt that I am alone in that. I think we all take that long, winding road to find our comfort zone. Now, that being said, I recognize that there are people here at this table that have found a very successful life different from mine. And needless to say, if everybody tried to find that little niche that I have found, we would not be a very productive country. So we do need that diversity, not only in our cultures, but in our strive for success as well, I guess. So that, I guess, thinking through that led me to the thought that, in a way, that is what the Greens are trying to do now with our election platform and with our policies that we're putting out. We are trying to let everybody find their comfort zone so that we can, and whether that comfort zone is in the economy or in some aspect of social justice. But it's obvious that we have not been moving as fast as we need to with our improvements with the climate change problem. And what's holding us back is not the climate deniers. It's those of us that are so comfortable either in our success with fossil fuels, and there are some good high-paying jobs out there in Calgary and here in Ontario that people want to keep, and we recognize that. And then there's the other end of the spectrum, people that are so scrambling just to make their life a little more comfortable that they have no intention of looking after their neighbor, let alone the environment. So some of the policies that the Greens have, I better hurry now, I got my 1-minute warning a while ago. Some of the policies that the Greens have to get us to that comfort level is our guaranteed livable income. That will not be a drain on the economy, that will be supporting the economy, that will be making a whole new, wow. I always do that, I always babble too long.
Thank you, Doug. Next call up, Dave Nicol on behalf of the NDP party. Dave?
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation to come today. I almost feel like an honorary Rotarian. I was here a couple of weeks ago, but I was most proud of Rotarians And I wanted to get this right, so I went to your guiding principles. I looked at the object of Rotary and your avenues of service and the four-way test, which we all affirm to today. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Wouldn't it be great if the world abided by Rotarian rules? Wouldn't it be wonderful if the political world abided by Rotarian rules? I have to tell you that I am most proud of this Rotary Club and the joint project that you have with Curve Lake and the Indigenous Studies program at Trent University. I was honored by your president and by Betsy McGregor to attend a presentation in Ottawa, and it was wonderful. The problem at Curve Lake was a problem of young people and a higher rate of suicides. What they wanted to do is allow young people to speak to their elders so that they could see people who had gone through the residential school system and had survived when they had to put up with horrible, horrible conditions. And so with a joint effort between Rotary and Curve Lake and the Indigenous Studies, they are filming those conversations. And I was privileged to go to Ottawa when those conversations in their raw form were being presented to some senators. And then later in the afternoon, I was again privileged to be invited to see those same presentations to a number of MPs. I think that is something that really is a beacon of light for our communities. And it's a way that, and I will just as a quick aside mention that through the AFN, the finished videos will be sent across the country as a template for how we can help young people across our country. And through Rotary, that program will go around the world to help First Nations kids around the world. So I applaud you and the efforts that you're doing to make this world a better place for all. The other thing is, 2 weeks ago I was here and Bob Bond, Boomer Bond, most of you will remember him, and I knew that my dad and Bob Bond were friends. I didn't realize that they were very good friends. In fact, I introduced myself as Lou Nichols' kid, and he got up, made his speech, and said, Dave Nichols here. Lou Nichol is his dad, and Lou Nichol was my hero. And he said, sorry, my dad always stood up and stuck up for the little guy. And I believe as a social activist, a labor activist, an anti-poverty activist in this town for over 20 years, I think I've lived up to my dad's expectations as a defender, someone who stands up for the little guy. I will say that my party also stands up for the little guy. And I would include small and medium-sized businesses as the little guy. I don't know if you saw the fact that we have just signed on to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is going to give all of the advantages to the major corporations. The major corporations that are already have the advantages of banks and banks of lawyers, and they're going to be working at the disadvantage of small and medium-sized businesses in Peterborough and across this country. So I want you to know that the New Democratic Party is going to stand up for the little guy, and as I said, that includes small and medium-sized businesses that create 80% of the jobs in every community. I'm proud to be a member of the New Democratic Party, and I cannot wait to be your MPP to help stand up for you and all the other little guys in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave, and thank you, Sergeant Ken, for keeping everybody on time. Next up is Mariam Monsef for the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'll begin by acknowledging our presence in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples. And thank you for organizing this meeting today, to my fellow candidates for participating in the democratic process, Rotarians, and guests. Before I go on any further, you as Rotarians, you're making a difference in the lives of people every day, and not just here locally, but beyond our borders. You embody one of the things that makes Canada such a great place, and I thank you for that. I'm here today because of all that is great about our community. I came to Peterborough 20 years ago as a refugee from Afghanistan with my mom and my two sisters, and strangers in a strange land. We didn't know the language, we didn't know the customs, but we were determined to make a life for ourselves. And I've spoken at this podium before, and I've shared my Canadian story with you before, and we came here to have a voice and to have choice. And Peterborough greeted us with open arms. We were provided with a hand up. We were given support. We were given advice. We were showered with love. And as time went on, I realized, well, I can be 13 years old and I can have a job in this country. And so I did. And I had the great privilege of being educated here. And PCVS and Trent University were big transformative experiences in my life. And as I entered the workforce, I had also the opportunity to be mentored by some great people without whom I would not be here today. I owe a great deal to the people of Peterborough-Kawartha, and it's that sense of responsibility and that kindness that motivates me to serve this community as your Member of Parliament in Ottawa. We're blessed with great assets in this community. We have an educated workforce. We have great post-secondary institutions, a vibrant arts and culture sector, natural beauty, and a legacy of successful small businesses and industries. Despite our many advantages, however, too many young people who want to stay here aren't finding social and economic opportunities locally, and they're moving away. We have an unemployment rate of over 7%. 4,900 people looking for work in our riding last month could not find that work. And over the past year, we've only been able to create 100 net new jobs. With the departing youth goes their energy, their skills, their unique perspectives. For some of you, it means saying goodbye to your kids and grandchildren, and we should be doing better. Given this reality, to me, staying the course and the status quo is not an option anymore. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the fundamental question during this election. Are we satisfied with the way things are? Is our declining manufacturing sector okay? Are 1.3 million people unemployed okay? Is the fact that 1 in 5 children are hungry and living in poverty okay? Is balancing the budget on the backs of our veterans and our seniors okay? Is having a second class of citizens okay? And my answer to all of that is no. I believe it's time to invest in Canada, in Canadians, at a time of historically low interest rates, a sluggish economy. It's time to invest in repairing and upgrading our infrastructure at a time when struggling to make ends meet is a reality for many families. A tax cut to middle-income families makes sense. At a time when families are finding a hard time raising their kids, well, a Canada Child Benefit Plan that gives the most support to those who need it most makes sense. Also, we need to address issues at a local level. That's why I developed, with community input, a local economic and social platform that builds on our assets. And it's shaped by conversations I've had at the doors, 10 community roundtables, and it represents my determination to engage you in the political process now and as your Member of Parliament. There's a plan in there to facilitate local job creation that builds on our strengths. And I hope that you take the time to read it on my website at mariammonsef.ca. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to do politics differently and to embrace real change. It's in that spirit that I ask for your vote on October 19th and for your confidence in the Liberal Party of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. I now call upon Mike Skinner, representing the Conservative Party.
First of all, I wanted to thank everyone for having us here today. You know, this is a great group that's done some pretty amazing things for our community. You know, I know you meet every single Monday and you talk about those things, whether it's a swim-a-thon, whether it's bringing exchange students from Brazil and other countries in to see what our country's like. You really, you kind of basically put your money where your mouth is. And so I think this organization is something that, that everybody in our community needs to look up to, and I think for most parts they do. And I just wanted to say thank you for everything you do before I start. So thank you. My name is Michael Skinner. I am your Conservative candidate. A little bit of a background on myself. I actually been in business for a very long time. When I was 17, I opened my first computer repair company. Opened it while I was going to high school, and then really wanted to move into the world of software. So when I was 20, I was like a lot of other people here. I had to move away, so I ended up moving to Winnipeg, which is not warm in the summer, or not warm in the winter time at all. But minus 45 is very, very cold. But then I was able to move from Winnipeg to Ottawa, and then come back here when I was 24. And because there wasn't a company here, I was able to open my own company. So I joined with a few friends that were here in Peterborough, and we started our first company. It was called Operatel. And we grew that company from basically 5 people on Pida Road. We grew that up to having offices in Peterborough as our primary office of about 65. We grew into Australia, Brazil, and China. And so we really became a large international company. At the same time, I really invested locally into a couple companies. Historic Red Dog at that time had closed, and I felt it was something that was a sort of an entertainment environment. It had been around since 1886, and so I restored it back to being what it was. We bought the old Paramount Theatre building and turned it into the venue, and also bought the Fisher Gauge plant and really restored it into what is today OpenTex's home. So in 2011, OpenTex came and bought Operatel. I stayed as a vice president for 2 years, but really I wanted to give back to this community. So I did join a number of boards. I joined the Peterborough Economic Development Board. Last year I chaired the strategic plan. I joined basically what used to be the DNA cluster, and now it's innovation cluster, because I really understand that entrepreneurs is where we're going to grow this economy. I recently was part of one of the founders of Startup Peterborough, and so for me it's all about, you know, how do we create a new economy here and how do we drive it. So for me, we need to generate more jobs. You know, I think the Conservatives have a great plan. Since the last recession, we've generated 1.3 million new jobs. Now the reality is what we've done is we've taken government out of your lives so you can generate, as business people, generate those 1.3 million jobs. You know, government doesn't really have the capacity to generate jobs unless it's hiring other government people to regulate certain industries. What it has the ability to do is really make sure that business people do what they do well. And for us, it's about making sure that taxes are low and that our budget is balanced. And the reason why taxes is low is because when we make sure lower taxes are low, the profitable businesses get to keep that money. And if you talk to a small business person, you know, the first thing they do when they go away on vacation, if they get a vacation, you know, they pack their laptop before their swim shorts. They've figured out every network hotspot, you know, where the printers are located, you know, where all the hotspots are inside of their area as they go across, where the conference center is, way before they figure out where the golf course and the spa is. That's business people. I mean, their cell phones are strapped to them, and it's that drive and that ambition that basically grows companies. And so for us, you know, I was really proud when our Prime Minister announced that we're going to generate another 1.3 million jobs between now and 2020, because what I heard was we're going to make sure that government doesn't get in your way. We're going to make sure that government stays out of business and lets you run the businesses. And so today we've just announced a Trans-Pacific Partnership. The thing for this is great. It's basically 850 million new customers that we can sell into. It's really going to help our advanced manufacturing businesses that are here in Peterborough. It's also going to help our avionics and anything to do with the airport. I mean, there's a lot of great industry around it. We've also announced a supplement package to make sure that our dairy farmers and some of the other groups that people were worried about are covered. We've announced $4.6 billion to cover 2 things. One is making sure that they can promote their products as made in Canada, because being made in Canada is huge. And the second piece is to make sure, because of the changes in supply management, that we cover off all of those and make sure that those farmers are whole. And so we've made that commitment today. I guess last thing for me is, you know, there are always things in your life when you're running a business that you can improve on. You know, I believe that things, you know, need to stay pretty steady when you're building a business, but you always want to improve. And so for me, it's always about staying in the steady course. I think the Conservative government has done a great job for the last 9 years. Yes, we can improve upon it. You can improve upon everything. But it's not about change, it's about improving. And that's why I'm running for the Conservative Party. I would love to have your support on October the 19th. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. And again, thanks to all four for your opening statements. Now we go to the question segment. We have been asking Rotarians for the past 2-3 weeks to submit questions, and I thank all of you that did. We got far too many questions than can be asked today. There's not enough time to deal with them, so I've picked a representative number today with some backup questions depending on how our timing goes. And we are slightly ahead of time, so that's good. These questions will be answered in the same order that we had our speakers come up, and each candidate will answer the same question, and each candidate has 1 minute to respond. So our Master Sarge can, there's no halftime warning, you can just ring the bell after a minute. If another party or candidate is mentioned in a candidate's response, then that candidate, the other candidate mentioned, will have a 30-second rebuttal, as is fair. Okay, the first question, please bear with me, this person liked to write. Service clubs like Rotary rely on donations from members and the general public to be able to fund the many local and international projects that make our community a better place to live. Recently, one of our members received a call from a political party seeking a donation to that party. The caller strongly inferred that it was more tax efficient to contribute to their political party than to donate to a charity. For example, 75% of the donation comes back to you as a tax break, as opposed to, let's say, 17% for charitable donations. So the question is, if elected, would you seek to amend the Income Tax Act that would put donations to political parties and charitable organizations on a level playing field? And the first person to respond, Doug, you have your minute. Yeah, yes, please use the mic at your table. They should be on.
Hello? Okay.
They're on.
Okay, so very interesting. Very interesting, because this thought has crossed my mind in the past too, and in fact, I even brought it up within our riding association. Some confidential stuff, maybe I won't get too far into it, but I recognize that it is an incredible difference. And if you are able to find a political party that is in direct line with your charitable considerations as well, then yes, donating to that political party is far more tax efficient. You have to have the confidence that that political party will follow through on your intention with that. Now, that being said, so yes, I would like to see, I guess, an equalization of those two opportunities, and I certainly don't want to advocate for bringing down the tax. I forgot. I thought I had 5 minutes.
Thank you, Doug. Next up for his response, Dave.
Hello? Oh, sorry about that. That's a great question, but what I'd really like to do is get the money out of politics to begin with. One of the problems that we're seeing with the United States is that whoever is going to be the next president of the United States, each party will have to spend over $1 billion. That takes democracy away from us. So it doesn't really answer the question, but I'd like to get money out of politics. What I'd like to do, instead of having us rely on charities to help people in our communities, I'd really like us to see our governments doing that. And I look at the idea of public health care in Canada versus private health care in the United States. In the United States, they have the highest number of bankruptcies are because of medical bills. So can we solve our social problems with charity? Yes, we can. Is it our preferred route? No. What I'd like to see is our governments act as Rotarians do, work for the benefit of all people in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Miriam, your response?
I can say that's the most unique question I've been asked to date. The tax system that we operate upon is complex at its best, and so I'm definitely not prepared to make any suggestions to amendments like the one that you suggested. I'd like to see people have more money to spend and more money to donate, and the Liberal Party's commitment to provide a 7% tax cut to individuals who earn a middle income makes sense. More money in their pockets to do with as they please. And I will say that 75% is the contribution return that you get when you donate up to $400. After that, the amount that you get back in return decreases to about 50% or less. So the political process is important. Public dollars help move that process forward, and I'm not prepared to touch that because it's allowing people like me to be part of that process. But there are amendments to be made, I'm sure, and as your member of parliament, you'll be part of that discussion.
Thank you, Miriam. And lastly, Mike?
So first of all, thank you very much for that question. I mean, the reality is that organizations like Rotary do some amazing things. It's one of the things why we just announced a month ago that your Rotary membership will now be tax exempt. So it doesn't necessarily fill the gap that you're talking about. The other thing with the Fair Elections Act is we capped at a federal level how much money could be put into elections. It's capped at $1,500 per person, and there's absolutely no corporate donations. And so by doing that, we're kind of removing some of the amounts that that have been put in the past. Now for me, it's all about lowering taxes. You know, the reality is we've lowered taxes to the lowest level in the last 50 years. You know, part of the recipe is really simple. Get more people working, so more people pay into that tax pool so that we require less taxes. And second, make government smaller and more efficient so it doesn't cost as much money. And by putting those two things together, I don't see why not down the road, as we continue to do tax cuts, we couldn't apply something more to be more favorable towards people that are really giving back to our society. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your answers to the first question. There's several more. Before I do, just for the information of the audience and to remind the candidates, after we have asked the questions that we've received from Rotarians, something unique, I think, but the candidates will have an opportunity to ask a question directly to any of the other candidates that they so choose, as long as it's civilized. So that's coming up. Stay tuned. Okay, the next question. This is a two-part. Please answer the first part with a simple yes or no, and then you may explain if it's in the no. In the event that there is a vote in the House of Commons where your party's position is contrary to that of a significant majority of your constituents here in Peterborough, would you vote according to the wishes of the majority of your constituents? If not, please explain why you feel you're not obligated to represent those who elected you as their representative in Parliament. And again, Doug, you go first.
Am I on? Okay. This is actually very similar to a question we all got 2 days ago, I think. What day are we? Yesterday, was it? At St. Peter's. We had an all-candidates meeting at St. Peter's, and we were asked about our position on abortion. And so, of course, it is quite possible that, I better hurry here, I've only got the minute. I've forgotten the question. So I would not go against the constituency wishes. The Green Party is emphatic about that. We will not have a whipped vote. So we represent the constituency, not the party. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Dave?
Sorry about that. The answer is yes, I would vote with my constituents, but here's the problem. We're all part of this archaic, undemocratic, first-past-the-post system. And one of the things we need is proportional representation. Proportional representation would free us from these undemocratic, false majority governments. We've had 16 majority governments since the end of the Second World War. Only 4 of them were legit. So what we need is a system where the opposition can become a proposition. It means that question period would actually become answer period. It means as well that if you have to listen to other parties, you darn well better listen to your own party members. And therefore, I could be, as your MP, your voice in Ottawa and not Ottawa's voice in Peterborough. So until we have proportional representation and get rid of these whipped votes and have more free votes, which proportional representation would allow us, we're not going to be in a really democratic country. We'll have our people going one way and our governments going the other way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Miriam?
I would vote according to the will of my constituents. The provision there is, unless it's a vote that would mean that my government loses a confidence motion. So if it's a budget or a speech from the throne, I would vote in line with my party so that we could continue to do the work that we committed to. Realchange.ca, you will find 32 commitments from Justin Trudeau for a more open and transparent government. In there is a commitment to provide MPs like me with more free votes. In there is a commitment that this federal election be the last first past the post federal election in our history, and a return to science-based decision making. I need to be able to sleep at night as your member of parliament knowing that I made the best decision for my constituents and for Canadians, and having science guiding our decisions and not ideology will make that process and the end result much more productive.
Thank you, Miriam. And Mike?
Sorry. This is a great question. It's actually a question I was asked by our party when I was going through my interview process. I just became a member in November, and so in order to go through to be a candidate, you've got to go through a much more rigorous vetting process because you haven't been a member for a year. And so I answered the question, and I'll tell you the answer very much. I said, I will always vote based on the best interests of my constituents. Now, if it is a whipped vote, it's a situation where the party needs it, then we're going to have to sit down and negotiate something bigger for my constituents. Because at the end of the day, I'm going there representing you. I don't work for the Prime Minister. I don't work for the Conservative Party. I'm elected by Peterborough-Kawartha, and those are the people that I'm going there. That's why I'm doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate the candidates are keeping their responses within the minute, so that's very much appreciated. That means we can get more questions out on the floor. Here is question number 3. Since the Trent Severn Waterway contributes to the local economy through tourism and cottaging, it maintains important natural areas, it impacts the quality and quantity of our water resources, it mitigates the impacts of spring flooding, and it is Canada's largest historic facility. Question is, do you support allocating sufficient funding to the Trent Severn Waterway so that it can implement its core functions? Doug?
So, yes, we strongly support the national parks, which is Trent Severn is part of. We also have this idea of creating an infrastructure bank, a crown corporation, arm's length from the government, that would collect, that would be able to collect funds more cheaply than the lower tier governments. And then if there is infrastructure that is needed by a municipality, by a region, that is geared towards the environment, so it's going to help the environment, then that infrastructure bank can give money to those groups, to those lower tier governments, much more cheaply than they could get it themselves. So the infrastructure that is desperately needed in the country, some of it could be done by the Trent Severn Waterway. It could be applied to the Trent Severn Waterway that way.
Thank you, Doug. Dave?
I was up in Buckhorn, and in fact all of the candidates were up in Buckhorn for a meeting of the voices of the Trent Severn Waterway. One of the issues of that meeting were that we haven't had governments that are serious about supporting the Trent Severn Waterway. It's been over the last 12 years since I've been involved in politics. I heard about what was going on with the docks in Lakefield, and we've had recent announcements about $256, I believe, $1 million. Unfortunately, what the Trent Severn Waterway needs is in excess of $700 million. So one of the things that came out of that meeting was a set of 4 recommendations. And I was proud to stand up and be the first candidate to say that I not only endorse those recommendations, but will follow through with those recommendations. The most important part is that the left hand has to know what the right hand is doing. There's so many smaller decision-making bodies, and we need to put them under the umbrella so that we actually support the Trans-Severn Waterway properly.
Thank you, Dave. Miriam?
So many mics at this table. I do believe that it's time to reinvest in the Trent-Severn Waterway, and that investment needs to be based on the principles outlined in Dr. Simon's report. It's all about the water. I did meet with the Trent-Severn Water Working Group. It was one of the 10 roundtables I hosted, and I committed to working with them on all 4 recommendations that they had put forward, including investing in infrastructure, including seeing it as an economic opportunity, and addressing the governance issues that come up when you have such diverse range of people affected by it. 387 kilometers long, 11 ridings, and various First Nations all need to be at the table. The Liberals have committed to investing nationally and reversing the $25 million cuts to programs and services that came out of the 2012 budget, investing $50 million per year in our parks, including us being able to benefit from that locally, and increasing science spending by $25 million per year. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Mike?
So we just announced the $286 million was invested in the Trent-Severn Water. Personally, I think it's a huge part of our community. 147 million of that 286 is actually here in the Peterborough-Kawartha riding. You know, when I was the chair for the strategic plan, 1/4 of our strategic plan was around tourism, and the Trent-Severn Waterway is a crucial piece to that. On top of that, our government, if elected, has announced $30 million to attract U.S. travelers to Canada. Part of my job as an MP for this region would be to make sure that a lot of that marketing money comes to this region here. But David made a mention to the 4 points from Voices of the Trent. You know, I only agree with 3 of them. The third point is actually that it should change out of ownership of Parks Canada. I think Parks Canada has got a good handle of what they're doing. It's taken them a little while as it's transitioned from Heritage to Parks Canada. The waterway actually, if you look at the history, went from military to transportation to Heritage and now Parks Canada. I think they're doing a good job. They're really focusing both land as well as water as well. And so their intent by putting in the new showers, upgraded locks, is really to drive the economy with our tourism here in the Trent-Severn Waterway.
Thank you, Mike. Fourth question, unprecedented. They told me I'd only be able to get 2, maybe 3, so here we go. Question I'm sure the 4 of you have heard already, but for us, we're going to ask it. Concerning jobs, how do you see your party creating sustainable jobs and wealth for Canadians with specifics to Peterborough? Doug?
It's rare that I actually manage to answer 4 questions, let alone hear the questions. I do have to apologize for this one. My specifics for this riding are will always be weak. What I got into the Green Party more for the environment first, but then democracy, our concern for democracy. So, oh geez, I forgot the question. So we will, I'm sorry, our concern is for that wide-ranging national and international concern about the environment. I'm sorry, I have forgotten the question already. And I'll stop because I'm babbling. I'll pass it on to others.
Yeah, we believe in strong communities, and when you have strong communities, you have a strong business community. I had to leave Peterborough. My dad worked at GE when there were almost 7,000 unionized employees. Now they're less than 600. Johnson & Johnson's gone, Pioneer Chainsaw's gone, OMC is gone. So one of the things, as I said earlier, is we're going to kickstart jobs in the small and medium-sized business community. You need a break, and we're going to give you that break. We're going to create an innovation tax credit. We're also going to cut the small tax rate from 11% to 9%. And we're going to extend the accelerated capital cost allowance for manufacturing and processing machinery and equipment. We know that you provide create 80% of the jobs in every community across this land. We need to give support to innovative young businesses that are going to take us into the clean, green economy. We know that we have the technology. We just haven't had, for the last 40 years, we haven't had the political will. And I want to be a part of the solution and not a continuation of the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Miriam?
First and foremost, we need to bring back the long-form census so that we have a better understanding of the changing nature of our workforce and the demographics in this country. That's a commitment that the Liberal Party has made, and I'm proud to also work locally to make sure that we're able to enhance our understanding of the local job market by having more data to help entrepreneurs and those who are looking to increase their investments. We'll be investing in infrastructure at a historic level, and that investment in infrastructure, be it roads, bridges, watersheds, that's going to stimulate the economy and provide businesses with more tools to grow and build upon. I think more generally, a government can reduce the regulatory burden, make sure that our tax base is competitive, provide greater capital to organizations locally, for example, like CFDC, so that they can help new entrepreneurs and those who want to expand do that expansion and make sure that the right safety nets are in place. In my local jobs plan, I outline some priorities that I'll be pursuing. That includes a paid internship program with Trent and Fleming College.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
So for me, this is the entire reason why I'm running, is about creating jobs here in Peterborough. You know, as a business person who's created jobs, I understand that side of the world, and I think I understand how to work with other businesses to make sure that they have what they need, and in a lot of cases, make sure that we remove the barriers that are in their way. Some of the things we are doing, though, is we're investing $65 million to support businesses and industry associations with post-secondary institutions to better align the curriculum with the needs of their employers. Right now in Peterborough, we have over 2,000 positions that are unfilled. So although we have close to 5,000 people that are unemployed, we have 2,000 people that actually 2,000 positions that are open. So part of it is a skills gap assessment. We need to make sure that the positions that are open, we're filling. And whether it's working with employers in order to retrain existing staff, in order to open up lower positions so those people can move into it, those are kind of the programs that we're going to focus on. But for me, it's going to be listening to business people and removing the barrier of government from your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Now we get to another interesting part of our game show, of our panel. This is where the candidates get to ask a question of another candidate. You know that they've drawn numbers as to who goes first, and then when they do the final remarks, I'm going to reverse that number draw. So what I'm going to do now is pick two people that did not get to go first and won't get to go first on the final one. Miriam, if you could start, you have the right to ask a candidate a question, please. And the candidate, if you so choose to ask a question, you may choose not to, the candidate has 1 minute to respond.
Just one candidate? But I have a lot of questions. I'll ask Mike. Mike, what's been the most challenging part of this campaign for you?
Sure. I think the most challenging piece for me is the comparative marketing. So coming from business, we always talk about our strengths. You don't typically walk into a sale and talk about the disadvantage of your competitors. You always talk about the strength of your product and why you're good. And so in the world of politics, which we are entering into, it's always a comparative. We're better because of this, and they're not so because of this. And I've had a very hard time adapting to the not so part. And so it's taken me a while to get my head around that, because it's just not how I was built, and it's not where I came from. So good question.
Thank you. Dave, you have the right to ask a question of any candidate if you so choose.
Oops. Doug, unlike the rest of us, you had very little time to prepare for this campaign. So what I'd like to know is, did you find it an advantage or a disadvantage to not have much time to prepare?
In a way, it was an advantage because, but it's showing here now because Friday, here I said yesterday we had the all candidates at St. Peter's, but Friday we had the all candidates at St. Peter's, and then Friday afternoon and all day Saturday, I went and worked with Peterborough Green Up and Depave Canada. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So basically, I took time off of the campaign. I just went and got dirty, digging up pavement and planting in stuff. And that is kind of green philosophy, though, because it was building the infrastructure in a small way that helps for our stormwater runoff. So we were getting rid of the pavement that would create that torrent of water going to the sewers, and we made a more permeable ground. So, a roundabout way to answer this, but I felt that I could take time off because the pressure wasn't there. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, I'm calling upon you. You may ask a question of any candidate.
Sure. Dave? Oh, I see. Hello? Hello? I'll just take this one. Dave, there we go. This one works fine. Dave, you've commented about the TPP. How is it that your party can explain what's going on with the TPP when none of your party was actually at the table when the negotiations were happening?
Thank you for making our point. Thank you for making our point for us. I was listening to CBC Radio this morning, and there's Perrin Beatty, the president of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, who's been briefed for months, apparently. No citizens have been there. No labor leaders have been there. No small business representatives have been there. So you're absolutely right that we don't know what our government has done. They conceivably could have literally and figuratively sold the farm for us. And we don't know that. And we won't be told that until after the signature is made. I can only go back to previous trade deals. NAFTA. And one of the things with NAFTA, the most dangerous thing is Chapter 11 with NAFTA, which protects foreign corporations' right to make unfettered profits, and we can't restrict that. So our healthcare system, our environmental laws can be challenged by a 3-person tribunal, not under Canadian courts. So I'm very worried about the TPP, and I wish your leader had shared all that with us so we could either support it or not.
Thank you, Dave. And last but certainly not least, Doug, if you have a question, you may ask it of any of the others.
Okay, hello. Yeah, so to Mike. Just kind of for full disclosure, Mike and I had a very brief conversation a week or two ago that kind of relates to this question. I told him at the time that it was very private, and so I am not expecting him to I'm not going to hold him to any earlier comments, even if I could remember them. But my question is, we all know, and it's not just opinion, we do know the very highly controlling nature of our Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office. That's my bigger concern. You spoke earlier about how you would help how you would stand up for the riding rather than the party. What strategies do you have that could give us confidence that you could override that controlling nature of the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office?
Stand up for that one. This one now? Oh, it's working now, right? No. This one is perfect. So I guess there's a couple things. I mean, life is always a bit of negotiation. And so, first of all, if I was to be booted out of caucus by the Prime Minister, I would still be representing the Peterborough-Kawartha riding. You know, I'm not doing this because my aspirations was to be a long-time politician. I'm not doing this because I need the salary that MPs make. I'm doing this because I believe that I can make a difference for Peterborough-Kawartha. And so that's the riding principles that I go there. And you may very well, like you and I talked about, I may very well be very naive in thinking that I can stand up to it. But I know that I've never been pushed around. And so if it's going to go up against this riding and it's going to affect us, I'm going to stand up for it. And if that means I'm in the very far back seat, farthest away you can be as a backbencher, then I guess that's where I'm going to be. But I think the other thing is I'm working very heavily with Adam Moulton and Jamie Schmiel, who are two other candidates that are running. Obviously, I'm hoping that they win as well. And so part of what I've always done in the past is I've formed partnerships. And so when my voice goes to Ottawa, I go as a package. And you'll see me start to negotiate, and I've already started, we've had 4 ministers here. I've started building relationship with those ministers. So it's about going there with a package and basically just saying, doing what I need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we get to the closing remarks. Each candidate will have 1 minute each to make their closing remarks, however you see fit. And we're going to do it in the reverse order to the opening remarks. So, Mike, you go first, please, for your closing remark.
So I guess just like to say thank you very much for all of you being here today. You know, this is probably one of the most politically active ridings. We have 26, possibly 27 debates in total, and it's been great. The questions from the floor have been unique each time, primarily. I think this riding is a riding that really cares. You know, we've had a big history in this riding, and for me, we need to continue pushing forward. You know, I want to bring back more jobs to this community. It's why I'm running. You know, I think with my expertise for being on a number of other boards, plus what I've done with the companies that are here in Peterborough, I can take that and apply it towards what needs to be done to help business owners grow this community. I've always believed in, you know, a hand up, not a hand out, and I've always believed that you can solve a lot by giving someone a job and giving someone a purpose, and that's what my intent's to do. So thank you very much today.
Again, going in reverse order, Miriam, your closing remarks?
Should we come up there? I do. I like it up there. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Timekeeper, for doing it all with a smile, and all of you for very respectfully and patiently listening. This has been the longest job interview of my life, and I'm not doing this because I need a job. I'm fortunate, unlike many in my cohort, I had a great job. I was getting paid well. I had evenings and weekends off, and people liked me, and I'm doing this because we can do better, because this is a great country, and this is a very special community, and there's no reason why 4,900 people need to go without work in our community. There's no reason why we give up our rightful place on the international stage only to let it be filled by a vacuum and with people who do not understand the right tenets of leadership on the international stage. Government isn't just about business. It's not just about creating jobs. You demonstrate that day in and day out when you take time out of your busy work schedules to be involved in your community. I want to be your member of parliament because I can advocate and I can work with you as a partner. Thank you.
Dave, you will be next, and again, you can come to the podium if you wish, or just stand there. It's up to you.
I really appreciate the invitation to come today. I reread a book called Whose Country Is This Anyway by Dalton Camp. And the contention of the book, written in 1995, is that for the last 30 years now, 50 years, we've had successive liberal and conservative governments that have said we can't afford to be Canadians anymore. We can't afford to have a proper healthcare system. We can't afford to have proper national childcare. We can't afford to support small and medium-sized businesses. We can't afford to build affordable housing. And we can't afford to have the country that we grew up in. Well, what I'm telling you is that I believe that we can be Canadians again. What Tom Mulcair is saying is that we can afford to be Canadians again, and that the NDP says that we can afford to be Canadians again. One of the things that we need to do is we don't need to strengthen the strongest link in the chain. We need to have strong chains, strong communities, and I cannot wait to be your MP and strengthen all of the links in our chain. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And now, Doug, you can come up here, or you can. Okay.
Well, I remembered what question number 4 was now. My answer is Sustainable Generations Fund. We have a fund that would create jobs for the generations. I also remember that I also realized that I missed saying a lot in that opening introduction. So let me touch again on some of the policies that I think would get our country towards that point of where we're all in the comfort zone so that we can work towards improving climate change. I mentioned the guaranteed livable income, and that brings people out of the poverty zone so that they can have that comfort that they can go and improve themselves. Maybe get a babysitter so that one parent can go to work, the other parent can go to a night school class. Student debt, this raises a lot of eyebrows. We would like to get rid of student debt. Thanks very much.
Okay, I want to thank again our Sergeant at Arms Ken for excellent timekeeping with a smile. I like that. Thanks again to Jay Amer for organizing this whole meeting and getting the candidates, and my personal thanks to the candidates and to the audience for keeping everything civil.